Okay, we're about to open a file on what is, without a doubt, one of the most disturbing secret projects in American history. A program so deeply buried, its full story was never, ever supposed to see the light of day.
And I want to be really clear from the start. Everything you're about to see, including the documents right here, it's all sourced from official, declassified government records. These are the files that they fought to keep hidden.
And that's probably the most important thing to keep in mind as we go through this. This isn't some spy movie plot. This is real. This actually happened.
So I want you to just imagine this for a second. You're at a work retreat, with colleagues, people you trust. Your boss hands you a drink. A little while later, the world just starts to melt. Colors get weird, sounds bend, and you can feel your own mind breaking apart. You have just been drugged by your own government, and you have no earthly idea why.
Well, that terrifying scenario was the reality for countless unwitting citizens. The program responsible was codenamed MKUltra. For 20 years, 2 decades, the CIA ran this top-secret operation with one single-minded goal: to figure out if they could completely control the human mind. So the big question is, how on earth does something like this even get started? I mean, what could possibly justify it? To understand that, you gotta go back to the paranoia of the Cold War.
See, in the early 1950s, the U.S. government was in a full-blown panic. American POWs from the Korean War were showing up in propaganda films, confessing to things they didn't do. The CIA became absolutely obsessed with this idea of brainwashing. They were convinced the Soviets and the Chinese had cracked some code to the human mind, and they were terrified of being left behind in this new invisible war.
And this declassified memo just lays it all out in the open. I mean, listen to this question. It reveals the program's truly terrifying goal. They weren't just looking for a truth serum. They were asking, can we create a human puppet? Can we make someone a spy or an assassin who doesn't even know what they're doing? It's the stuff of nightmares, and they were dead set on finding out. So to answer a question like that, you need test subjects, a lot of them. And let's be real, they weren't about to go looking for volunteers. The methods they used, it's just a laundry list of horrors. Their absolute favorite tool was LSD, which was this brand new, powerful, and totally unpredictable drug at the time. They gave it to mental patients, to prisoners, to people in hospitals, basically anyone who couldn't fight back, who couldn't really consent. In some cases, people were dosed with LSD for more than 70 days straight, while scientists just stood by taking notes as their minds completely unraveled. And believe it or not, it gets even more sinister. In San Francisco, they ran a sub-project with a truly wild code name, Operation Midnight Climax. They set up fake brothels, they hired prostitutes to lure men inside, and then they'd spike their drinks with LSD. And behind a one-way mirror, you had CIA agents just watching, observing, documenting everything that happened to these poor, unsuspecting guys. You hear about all these nameless victims, and it's horrible. But one story really puts a human face on this entire program. This is Frank Olson, and he wasn't a prisoner or a patient. He was one of them. He was a respected Army biochemist working on top-secret projects for the CIA. He was a husband, a father of 3, a normal guy. So in November of 1953, Olson goes to one of those work retreats. While he's there, his own colleague, the head of MKUltra, a man named Sidney Gottlieb, spikes his Quantra with LSD. Olson has no clue. Over the next few days, he has a complete psychological breakdown. And then 9 days later, he falls from the window of his 10th floor hotel room in New York City. For decades, the official story was a tragic suicide, but his family never believed it. In 1994, they had his body exhumed. And here's the crucial part. The forensics team found evidence of blunt force trauma. He was hit on the head before he went out that window. And that discovery just blows the whole thing wide open. It raises this chilling question that sits at the heart of the entire scandal. Did Frank Olson really commit suicide during a bad trip? Or was he murdered because he knew too much and wanted out? It's just the ultimate betrayal by the very institutions he worked for. And that story of betrayal, well, it gets a lot deeper. Because once the program started to unravel, the CIA did everything it possibly could to make sure no one would ever find out the truth. So fast forward to 1973. The Watergate scandal is exploding, and everyone in Washington is terrified of what else might come out. The CIA director at the time, Richard Helms, starts to panic. He knows that if the details of MKUltra ever leak, it would be an absolute disaster.
So he gives one single illegal order: destroy it all. And they did. Thousands upon thousands of documents were shredded, burned, gone forever. The cover-up was almost perfect. Almost. But in a complete fluke, a total accident, a single box of financial records for the project got misfiled. It was sent to the wrong archive. And inside that one box were 20,000 documents that survived the purge. And those surviving documents were the smoking gun. They proved everything. They showed the secret funding channels, they described the experiments, and they explicitly confirmed the use of unwitting subjects. All of the darkest rumors, the wildest theories, turned out to be true. It was all there in black and white. So, with the truth finally out, you'd think there would be justice, right? Congressional hearings were held, the CIA said it was sorry. But what happened next, what happened to the people responsible, might just be the most shocking part of this whole story. Absolutely nothing. Nobody went to jail. Not a single person. Just look at this. Sidney Gottlieb, the chemist who personally dosed Frank Olson, the guy who masterminded the whole twisted program, he was allowed to just retire, quietly. He never faced a single criminal charge. He never spent one day in prison for what he did. Zero consequences. And that brings us to the most unsettling question of all. Remember those 20,000 documents that we have? They were a mistake. They survived by accident. The vast, vast majority of the files were successfully destroyed. So what was in them? What other experiments did they run? How many other victims were there? We'll never know the full story. We only know the tiny piece that they failed to erase.
Ultimately, Project MKUltra is this terrifying reminder that the most dangerous conspiracies aren't the wild theories you hear about online. They're the real operations that governments conduct in total secret and then do everything in their power to bury. The documents were real, the victims were real, and the lingering questions about what was in all those burned files, that's a chilling legacy that we're all still living with today.